Hey, this is Danny with Grow Wealth Within, and I'm here today with Kevin A. Dunlap. He's a realtor, professional speaker, trainer, author. He's certified in NLP. He's got a new book coming out, or sorry, I'm not sure if it's a new book, Design Your Own Destiny.
That's my
Um,
second book. My new book is The Winner's Code.
the Winner's Code. Awesome. I remember I'm seeing your bookshelf behind you, Lease Options Made Easy. I remember reading that one, and I'm very thankful for that book. You've also got a podcast, I think, right?
That is correct.
Awesome. Would you mind just giving just a brief recap or an introduction of yourself?
Yeah, so as you said, my name is Kevin A. Dunlap. I am an author, speaker. I'm a local realtor in the Las Vegas market. I do specialize in the creative side of real estate, like lease options, as you mentioned,
Mm.
seller financing, as well as I'm moving into the cannabis space.
Oh,
So
neat.
I'm enjoying working on the creative side where people don't think they can buy and they actually can buy. But since then, I do speaking. I do a lot of personal training as far as business coaching and life coaching.
Awesome. And my podcast is all about investing, which is why I was asking you on because I was pretty intrigued just by lease options in general. And you said a lot of your early investing was all lease options. So I'm curious, as an investment vehicle, how did you find that?
Actually, I didn't. I read about it and heard about it back when I lived in North Carolina back in 2002 and 2003.
Mm-hmm.
However, when I moved to Las Vegas in 2004, after the group of investors that I was working with, the whole reason I moved out here after they disbanded, I came across the idea again in July 2004 and just thought that was one of the greatest vehicles out there. Because
Mm.
you back then everybody could get a loan, but
Yeah.
kind of find out not everybody could get a loan. So for
Huh.
the people that could not get a loan, we would actually have investors buy their houses for them, and then they would lease option them back to that would-be buyer, which they would buy again 1 or 2 years from now, from that time. Also, also with the idea the whole increase of, because back then appreciation was like 25, 30, 35%. It was just going through the roof. So
Right.
we would add a nominal 10 or 15 or even 20% appreciation to that property, and that would be buyer would buy that house within the next 12 to 24 months.
Nice. So how many of those deals did you do?
I'm still doing, to be honest, I've lost count. The only
Oh,
thing I remember is that 1 year, which was 2011, my goal was to do 52 lease options, and I did 53.
wow. That's incredible.
That's just 1 year. Now I've been doing this since 2004. So if I had to guess how many that I've done, I would say between 400 and 500 of them.
Wow. And that's also because you're a realtor. So I'm curious, were you able to keep for yourself? Were you able to get any lease option as investments for yourself?
I did a few for myself. However, I was mainly doing it more as a service
Mm.
between the seller landlord and then the tenant buyer. So I would work with the seller landlord, market their home, go out and find the tenant buyer for that home, and then connect the two people for a fee.
Awesome. So I just want to kind of slow that down a little bit and just make sure that anybody watching this would really understand what is the problem you're solving with a lease option as an investment.
What you're solving for the owner, what you're doing is you're providing a not only a service for the tenant that's living in the home, you're getting a better rate of return, a higher ROI, to use the investment words, and you're getting a better quality person moving into the house. And if you look at it from the perspective of, hey, I will get a tenant that's going to be paying $1,200 a month and a $1,200 security deposit, or I got a person that wants to buy the house that is putting down, say, $8,000, and they're
Mhm.
paying $1,400 a month, of which they're getting a $200 credit. Who's going to take more better care of that house? Well,
Right.
so
It's the
my
person who thinks they own
person,
it, or rather does own it. Sorry to speak over you there.
well, because it's the person that has the intention of buying, they're going to take much better care than just the regular renter. So from the landlord's perspective, they get a higher rate of return. If they don't buy, they got a much higher rate of return. If they do buy, they got top of the market rents, and they had a higher quality tenant living
Yeah, yeah. And in my industry, we call that pride of ownership.
there.
A
Yes.
renter just doesn't have the pride of ownership. They're going to come in there, they're going to tear up the place, they're going to expect you to fix everything. But if you sell the home to them, then it's their home. They have pride in that. They take care of all the maintenance, and they're going to take care of it long term because they want their home to look good in theory.
Well, that's how it works for a seller financing. A lease option is kind of a hybrid between those two, because the
Oh,
person actually isn't on title yet. They're buying the right to buy. A lease option is also known as their rent to own. So
okay.
they're actually they're buying the right to buy, just like you do in the stock market. When you do an option on the stock market, you pay a premium, just like you do in the real estate world where you're paying the option payment. But the thing is, it's all about intention. It's all about that intent of that
Mm,
tenant buyer. If I'm moving into a place and I want to buy it, I'm going to fix that garbage disposal. I'm going to fix when those other things go wrong. I'm not just going to ignore things that are starting to be a bit of an inconvenience. Now, if I was a tenant, I may just ignore that, and that could lead to more maintenance issues in the future. So you're right about that pride of ownership aspect.
awesome. Yeah. And then thanks for making that distinction because that's a really big deal. The difference between a lease option and seller finance is that seller finance, people buy it almost instantly. With a lease option, it's a piece of paper that says you're locked in to buy it in the future or renegotiate.
God, that is correct. Yeah, you're
Awesome.
buying the right to buy. Yes.
And so I guess from the investor side, they have a home, let's say it's worth $100,000, and they're trying to sell it. So they would get it lease option to somebody. And as part of doing that, they're probably going to lock in a higher price. So a $100,000 home would get locked in for say 110. They get their option payment.
Mhm.
So that's what makes the paper worth it. So we get an option payment, sign the paperwork, and then every month you get income for say 2 years, whatever the option's written as. And from there, the tenant buyer has the option to either purchase it in full with a loan or somehow renegotiate the option. Is that correct?
That is correct. I mean, they could either buy it, they could have somebody else buy it on their behalf. They could extend the contract. Maybe the landlord, knowing that they've had a good rental history, maybe the owner will switch over to seller financing because
Cool.
the owner may want to still get a monthly payment on the house, but instead of being a landlord, now he's the bank, and they're receiving it kind of as an interest rate rather than a monthly mortgage payment, or excuse me, rental payment.
So the way that the investor wins is that they get a slightly higher price for their home,
Mhm.
and they're getting the not rent, but they're getting a monthly payment. And so there's how their investment is paying them back. And the tenant buyer is getting a home that they may not have been able to get because they couldn't get a loan.
Correct.
So both people win.
Now let's explain why somebody may not be able to get a loan.
Hmm.
Because they who's if they're not qualified now, how are they going to be qualified in the future? And in some cases, that is the case. They're not. But many cases, what I see in the lease option, this is the advantages to the tenant buyer. By the way, they are recently divorced.
Hmm.
They just moved from Orange County, California to Las Vegas, and they're starting a new job, so they don't have a 2-year job history, or they're self-employed. They don't have a 2 years tax returns with the IRS showing their income, or
Hmm.
they are a person that receives tips, like say a dancer or a bartender or a valet, and they have to adjust their income to say, okay, I can't afford this. There's a
Hmm.
huge number of reasons why people fall into this category of where they can't get a loan. But if they can start showing, hey, I'm making this income now, and then I'm showing that I can do it for 2 years, now I can qualify for that loan. So at that time, then they just exercise their option, and then now they have ownership of the house, with the
Awesome.
benefit that they never had to go out and they did not have to go and actually hire a moving truck, or they didn't have to go out and go look for a second place to live if they were just doing a rental then a purchase. So
Huh.
those are one of the great advantages for the tenant buyer.
Awesome. Yeah. So getting back to investing, um, do you find yourself doing a lot of investing these days, or is it something that's
I'm
behind
holding
you?
back a little bit on the real estate because so I'm just waiting to see what's going to happen with the market. Because right now we do have a large number of inventory, and this is just in Las Vegas. Now
Hmm.
other towns could have something different. I would say most of the United States, March, April, May are when people start to buy houses. So this is a kind that's usually when you see housing prices go up, assuming of course assuming of course that there's going to be a shortage of inventory. I'm just seeing right now, even though Vegas has some great telltale signs of what's going on here at this moment in time with
Hmm.
the Raiders coming here and all of that. I do see, as a realtor, I see a large number of houses for sale, and houses are sitting a little bit longer, which to me could mean an indicator that prices could actually either stabilize or could actually dip for a little bit. So
Hmm.
until I see what's going to happen there with some stronger telltale signs. I'm not buying at the moment in Las Vegas.
Okay. So, so as far as investing goes, what would you say a successful investor means to you? So,
What a successful investor means to me.
yeah. I mean, if you came across someone that you would say was a successful investor, or if you consider yourself a successful investor, what does that mean to you?
Well, that just means if they're successful, that means they're not going to be buying on emotion. They're not going to be buying on how pretty it is. They're going to be buying based solely upon the numbers. I mean, that's one thing, anything in real estate that you're going to be buying, you have to know your numbers. And what
Mm,
is your income? What is your exit strategy? Your exit strategy on one house may not fit the exit strategy on another house. For an example, if I bought a house here in Vegas and let's say it's in a strong rental market, a lease option or rental may be a great idea for that place. In a weaker rental market, maybe flipping the house is a better thing, or maybe selling it via seller financing is a better strategy. Because let's say, for an example, I buy a house for 200,000 and the rents in that area are 1,200, which basic math says it doesn't beat the 1% rule of where the rental per the rent per purchase price is concerned. Well, maybe I could sell that house. Let's say it also is only worth 210,000. So I could sell that house on a seller finance note, maybe at 220, 230, 240 to somebody else, I'd say a 6 or 8% interest rate with a 30-year loan on it with maybe a 10-year balloon. Now I just created myself a 10-year income, and you cannot negative cash flow when you sell on seller financing.
hmm
You can on a rental, you can on a lease option, but you cannot on seller financing as long as the interest rate or the purchase price that you're giving to somebody else is above what you're paying.
Hmm. So it sounds like creative financing's, something that you're really into. I'm curious, how did you get started on that?
How I got started when I first moved to Vegas in January 2004, the group of people that I worked with, and this was back when there was a very hot market going on
Mhm.
here. I mean, it was going across the entire world.
Right.
And what was going when I moved here, they were actually buying foreclosed homes, and believe it or not, there were foreclosed homes back in back in those days.
Wow.
That they would buy those homes, rehab those homes, and then sell those homes on a seller carry note. So
Okay.
that would give the investor a cash flow on a monthly basis instead of just realizing the gain on the equity position. So they gave them that cash flow. When that company fell apart in June of 2004, I started thinking, how else can I do anything? I found a realtor because I wasn't a realtor at that time, and we started our lease option program. So I already had a whole network of investors. I had maybe 200 or 300 investors that were interested in Las Vegas. It just happened to happen at a good time that, hey, I've got people that can't buy a home. I got people that want to invest in homes. We've got strong appreciation. Well, let's create a lease option program.
Nice.
And that's how it was born. I don't do that now, but that's how I used to do it.
Sweet. Back when you were learning, or even now, do you have any mentors or heroes that you look up to as far as this whole creative financing thing goes?
As far as creative financing, I mean, I forgot the guy's name. He does apartment complexes. Vidari, I want to say is his last name.
Mhm.
He was an influence. My very, very first influence was Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah.
And honestly, I can strongly and admittedly say I've never read Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Get out, really?
I started with Cash Flow Quadrant. That was the
Okay.
second book. So I've never actually read Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah, that's funny because I discovered Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was commuting in the Bay Area.
Mhm.
So I would read it maybe every other month because it was just something to do while driving. So I've read Rich Dad Poor Dad probably at least 2 to 3 dozen times, and then again Cash Flow Quadrant like a dozen times.
Mhm.
So, but yeah,
Uh,
Cash Flow Quadrant is awesome.
well, when I was looking for books on finances, I picked up Rich Dad Poor Dad at a bookstore because this was 2002. I looked at it as like, oh, this is basic stuff. Then I picked up the second book, and then at that time he only had 3 books. He had Rich Dad Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant, and then Own Your
Mhm.
Own Corporation. And I bought those 2 books and I read those back to back. It's just, I mean,
Nice,
the third book was a little dry, but the Cash Flow Quadrant was the one that really opened my eyes.
awesome. So, so Kiyosaki is one of your mentors, basically, that got you going. Any
Yeah.
others?
With the Vidari guy, there was another one. I forgot his name. I know he's up here on my bookshelf.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you text it to me after this, then I'll just put it in the show notes.
Okay, no problem. Because what got me influenced is because when I first started investing, I owned two houses in North Carolina before I moved to Vegas. And then in 2003, I bought my first small apartment complex. In
Mm,
2004 is when I moved to Vegas. So I was starting to lean heavily toward buying apartment complexes because with those you have one address and you have multiple tenants
yeah.
on a
That sounds
house.
really exciting. What happened there? Like, why didn't you go that route?
I did. I owned two apartment complexes. I had sold the one in Alabama shortly after coming here, and then I was working on a rehab on a 32 unit apartment complex in Kansas City, Missouri. When the market was tanking, and then that's just everything just crumbled. I couldn't get financing, and the rehab
Mm,
money ran out, and then everything, things just went crazy at that time.
okay. So I personally believe that things like that are the best scenarios for lessons learned. Would you be willing to share any lessons learned from that?
Yes, and this goes back to even to Kiyosaki, and it's a crude reminder of knowing your numbers.
Mm, okay.
When Kiyosaki says when you buy a house, you buy it based upon cash flow. You
Hmm.
never, ever, ever buy based upon appreciation.
Right.
Appreciation is not guaranteed.
Yeah. And I like the way he says it. He says you make your money when you buy, not when you sell.
That is correct. So if you buy correctly, because I'll tell people this, because I lost houses back in the recession, is that you cannot lose money in real estate. It is virtually impossible. And I know a lot of people are probably saying, "What the heck are you talking about?" I lost four homes during the recession.
Right.
If you buy correctly, as Kiyosaki says, in a positive cash flow, you cannot lose money. Now the market may go up and it may go down, but if it's positive cash flow, you're just riding the wave out. So anytime the market dips down, okay, wait 4 or 5, 6 years. It will end up going back up again.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
if you're buying based upon cash flow, not appreciation, you cannot lose money because the only time you can lose money in real estate is when you sell.
Hmm. Nice. Well, it reminds me a little bit. I mean, I used to have a duplex in the Bay Area, and when I got it, it was cash flowing at I think 500 a month, which is respectable for a duplex. Every now and then, my cash flow would kind of get wiped away by repairs, which was
Mm-hmm.
a little frustrating for me. But I think I held on to it for 4 years, and when I did sell it, it went up by like 25%. So
Okay.
I doubled my money on that property when I was never intending to do that. I was just intending to get cash flow. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of nice when you invest for cash flow, and then when the market does change or go up or whatever, you can turn that cash flow into a potential to just get a big lump sum, which is kind of nice.
Right. And that is exactly right. Actually, I just remember the guy's name. His name is Wright Thurston, and he's where I learned all the so many different creative techniques.
Mm.
And the cash flow was one of the things he talked about was something known as a substitution of collateral.
Oh, how's that work?
How that works is that I'm going to buy I'm going to buy a house A, but I'm using house B as the collateral for house A. So
Ah,
the loan
okay,
is applied against the first property; it's applied against the second property.
okay.
And where that works is, let's say if I'm buying a house through you, Danny, and you're holding 80%, and I've got a 20% with somebody else, so I got this 100% finance, and I want to refinance the house. I can take this the second one, put it on a different property, refinance you, and then put it back on as well.
Huh,
There's so
nice.
many creative techniques out there.
Um, so I noticed you're also a lot about mindset, and
Yes.
I am too. My programs, they teach investor mindset. Not I teach money. I teach how you think about money. So I'm all into mindset as well. I was wondering, do you have any guiding principles or rules that around mindset that you feel would contribute or have contributed to your success?
Yes, because everything is based upon your perspective.
Mm,
Everything. And it's funny how when you change your mindset, which is also a way of changing your perspective of how you look at something, you can actually you can go much further
mm,
down the path. For an example, I catch myself sometimes because I've got my third book coming out is called The Winner's Code: Secrets to the Winner's Mindset. And the winner's mindset is all about the win-win. And in the book, I go into quite in many different areas how you are looking at something. How can you can now step back and says, let me look at this from another person's perspective, or or maybe the other person that you're maybe having a debate with. If I look at it from their perspective, how can I look at this thing differently? It's like, then you can start to realize, oh, okay, there are other answers to this problem. There are other solutions to this that I never thought of before. So by being open to other perspectives, which is again is the mindset, you can learn a lot. For an example, I look at things that sometimes that were negative in my life, like you said about you learning from those failures, those mistakes. Now I can go back and look at it because it happened to me. It's like, okay, I now know, do not buy on appreciation, because so many people were doing that back in 04, 03, 04, 05, and 06. They were buying based upon that assumed appreciation. You cannot buy on that. So now my mindset is, what is my learning lesson from this? What is my takeaway?
Yeah, I've heard it said that you live some and you learn some. So as long as you can learn some, you'll never fail.
True.
Nice.
Well, failure just means giving up.
Yes. So, and that's one of the winner's mindset, in my opinion, is that they've done studies that the winner's mindset involves grit. The people who do not give up are the ones who always win. And it seems like such a small thing, but just that determination that really separates the, for lack of a better word, winners from the losers. You know, the people who kept going and the people who gave up.
Well, and that's going to be true with anything in life. There was one time I was in grad school at studying meteorology at Florida State University, and I was standing. I remember standing in the third floor window, looking at the window, and this is Tallahassee, Florida. There is no films going on out there. I said to myself, I wanted to do stunt work or film. And lo and behold, within a few years later, I was working on a play, and then that led me to meeting somebody else that was in North Carolina. This is when I moved to North Carolina. That was part of a small a stunt troupe. So that led me to actually joining on their troupe, doing stunts for the films. Actually, then doing assistant stunt coordinating, and then eventually stunt coordinating of some other independent films. But
fun.
That just dealt with persistence. Say, hey, I'm determined to do this.
Huh.
And I remember I bought a book, How to Be a Stuntman. So,
there are books on that? That's amazing.
Yes, I got it right there on the shelf. But I mean, because what that did for me was when I made that decision, I know this is not related to investing, but in many ways it is. When I made that decision, the first thing I remember doing was like, do I have the cojones to actually do stunt work? You know, I don't know. Well, let's go skydiving and find out. I did my first jump, and then I realized, okay, I can do this. And I started teaching myself how to skydive. So I got my Class A certification.
Oh, nice.
Then I started taking fencing. I started taking up scuba diving. I mean, things that I thought a stuntman would need to know. I started taking up some martial arts classes as well. It's just training myself. Then when I moved to North Carolina, I found out this play that was going on, and I applied to be a stuntman on the show. I did one stunt. It lasted maybe 1 minute. It was in a play called I forget, Oklahoma. It was a play, Oklahoma, and I start the fight at the very beginning of the second act. I had to drive an hour and a half each way just so I could be 5 minutes on stage. Unpaid.
Well, you got to start somewhere, yeah.
Got to start somewhere, and you have to be humble, and you have to be open to not getting paid for it. But the thing is, you're getting that training. Go be a mentor or go be a mentee of somebody else. And even though it's completely unpaid, you're still learning. You're learning stuff that you would not be able to learn by just reading a book, watching a video, or attending a seminar.
And I wonder how much that same approach could be applied to just investing in general.
Investing or anything in general. I remember reading one book. I think it may have been Joel Comm, and he was talking about one day he was thinking about buying an ice cream shop. He said, it looks like it's good money. He ran the numbers, looks like it's good numbers. And before he invested into the ice cream shop, you know what he did?
Yeah.
He went and became an employee of another ice cream shop.
Ah, okay.
So he
So now,
saw the day-to-day activity, and then he realized after watching what the manager was doing, watching what he had to do, and all the employees doing, he said, "I sure as heck do not want to own a company like this."
that's pretty
So
smart,
instead of
actually.
investing millions of dollars into an ice cream shop, he went and worked at one just to
Hmm.
say, just to learn. So he was probably making minimum wage, but it wasn't about the wage; it was
Hmm.
about the education.
Yeah, I'm actually that's something I want to look into as far as investing goes. Is just things like franchises and buying businesses. I'm looking for a good connection on that. I'm hoping to have an interview with someone like that in the future. I've got a investor friend of mine who's always talking about wanting to buy a frozen yogurt shop, and
Okay.
he wants me to partner with him. And I wish him the best. I just don't want to get into frozen yogurt personally.
Well, I remember Kiyosaki, one of his books that came out probably around '04, '05, maybe '03, '04. I forget which one. And he was talking about getting into the oil industry.
I
And
remember that. Yeah,
I
I
remember,
actually went to a Kiyosaki event in the Bay Area back in San Jose. And
okay,
as part of the event, they had an expo area and breakout rooms and all that stuff. And there was someone in a breakout room who was basically pitching a PUD, which is it's like a it's like you have oil, you have something pumping the oil out. So the actual oil reserve, if you put like another straw into the same container, that's how he described it. A PUD is basically we're going to put another pump in here and pull out the same oil that we already know exists. And so that was the investment they were selling at one point.
mm,
So, but this is like you said, this is like 2003, four, something like that.
okay.
So, but it's interesting. Like once you understand investing as a concept, it doesn't matter what it is anymore. And that's the thing that I've been trying to get a lot of like break people's minds. It's not just real estate, right? It could be anything. Anything could be something you get that has a rate of return. And if you can calculate that rate of return and it's reliable, then there you go. You've got an investment.
Exactly. And like I say, it could be anything from stocks, real estate, to apps, to companies, to franchises, to, I mean,
Yeah.
PUD or anything.
Yeah. I was trying to just tell a friend, I mean, everybody understands the concept of a fix and flip. But that model doesn't have to be a house. It could be anything. It could be a car. It could be a business. And fix
Yes,
and flip works in so many different areas.
this
So
is true. And then,
cool.
like you said, find a need where somebody has a need, and figure out how can you make an investment around
Yeah.
that.
Find a problem because the solution is probably what you're looking for. That's where the money's made.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yes.
So I was gonna move on to grow wealth within. Our slogan, our motto basically is invest in yourself, in others, and our collective futures. And that can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people, but I was wondering if maybe I could ask you those same questions. How do you invest in yourself?
Well, there's many answers to that. One of the things is always be willing to learn. Working on personal development and personal growth is huge for me. So if you live in a town that has personal growth classes, and there's plenty of them out there, I'm a graduate of PSI seminars. There's also Rapport, there's Landmark, there's
Mm-hmm.
Clemmer and Associates. There's a whole bunch of them out there, as well as taking other continuing education courses. I know I did stuff through um, Peak Potentials, which is now called Success Resources. I've taken a course called Rainmaker. I've followed other people like Allison Maslin, Lisa Sasovich. Another one is uh, Jeff Walker, which was Product Launch Formula.
Mm,
So there's so many different things out there. Go and take that, and not only just attend the class and take your notes. Go back and review your notes on a regular basis. I
yeah.
mean, one thing I do, and this is a pain in the butt, to be honest with you, because it takes days to do this, is I'll go and take let's say a 3-day class, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday class. I'll take copious notes. And then once that is done, I will spend the next 2 or 3 days retyping my notes into the computer.
Mm, yeah.
So now because I'm doing it shortly after the class, because I'm going about what did I experience in the class, I can put that into there as well. So I usually put that in italics, so I know it's not part of the class, it's part about the experience. And then I'll go and review the notes. I know when I took when I went for my NLP training, which was 5 days long, I had like 98 pages of typed notes.
Wow.
So
Actually, I'm really curious
it
about the
took me over
NLP
a week
training.
to do that.
How was the NLP training?
It was phenomenal. I suggest anybody go and do it. I went through a gentleman by the name of Dr. Matt James.
Hmm.
Some of you guys, some of you people might have heard a gentleman by the name of Tad James out of Las Vegas. Dr. Matt James is his son.
Okay, cool. I'll look for them. I'll Google that.
And I'll give him a little shout out for his website. Once I learned what his website was, I mean, because he was very inexpensive for his training, but when he gave me his website, like, no brainer, I'm in. So
Awesome.
he's the one to remember. It's www.nlp.com.
Get out, really?
Yes.
Wow.
So
Huh.
here's the first one to be able to get that website.
Yeah. 3 letters. Wow. So, okay. So the second part, so that's how you invest in yourself, which is wonderful. Thank you for sharing all that. How would you invest, or how do you invest in others?
By actually giving back to societies as much as I can. Now, I know I already mentioned PSI seminars. I've actually gone back and restaffed their courses for
Cool.
free. As a mentor, as
Yeah, I did that with
somebody
Clemmer.
for that. So I think I've done their basic class, which was I think I've done it like 14, 15 times. And then their advanced class, which I had to fly to San Francisco on my own dollar to go and volunteer for 7 days for other people. So that's usually about a $400 or $500 investment, or not investment. That's about a $400 or $500 that I spend to go help volunteer for other people.
Awesome.
How to give back to others? Go and be of service. Join your local communities. If you're going to be a coach, go teach at the YMCA, or do something. It doesn't have to be about the money. It's about the service to others.
Nice.
And attend meetings, and maybe go and volunteer. If you're a seasoned business owner, go and volunteer as SCORE, the
Oh
Small
yeah,
Business
Score's
Partnership.
wonderful. Yeah.
So those are all volunteers.
And so I think you jumped right into the third one, which was how do you invest in our collective futures? And that's usually community.
Yes. Well, with community, volunteer. I mean, volunteer. You can volunteer on a small local level, like you said, like in a class or something, or you go and volunteer on, at big movements. So
Sweet.
and find out what those are. Join a local charities. Become a board member of one of the local charities.
Awesome. So what's next for you? Tell me a little bit more about your third book.
The third book is called The Winner's Code, Secrets of the Winner's Mindset. That's a book that's coming out very, very soon. It may already be out by the time the show is aired, or by the time you hear the show.
Yeah, I'll link to it.
The book is actually all about. I created 8 different mindsets. There's 7 non-productive ones. I call them loser mindsets, but I said no, that's a little bit too harsh. I just call them non-productive. And then there's the 8th one, which is the winner's mindset, and the other 7 are everything from. And I'll just go over them. One is the egotistical mindset. One is the pretender mindset. That's the person that pretends to be your friend, but is there just for their own selfish reasons. And that's the more extremes. I call it the taker mindset. Then there's the victim, the person that's always the woe is me. Then there's the martyr, the one that's always throwing themselves under the bus for other people, so they're never looking out for themselves. Then there's the person that always has to attack back, what I call the revenger mindset. And then probably the one that's, I would say, is the worst of them all, and worse than the revenger, worse than the taker, is what I call the drifter mindset. That's the person that has no momentum. They're the same place they are now that they were a year ago, that they were 2 years ago, in their investments, in their personal lives, in their career. Now with the other 6, at least they have momentum. When we have momentum, you just change the course. If you're drifting, it's like a locomotive. A locomotive can always change the track and go a different direction. But a locomotive that is just actually stationary, how much energy does it take just to get that thing going?
Get it moving.
And then of course the 8th one is the winner's mindset. So I talk about that in your interpersonal relationships. I also talk about how does that show up, those 8 mindsets show up in your workplace, and also talk about how do those 8 mindsets show up in your as an entrepreneur.
Awesome.
So that could be as the investor as well.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. I mean, that's exactly the kind of stuff that I mentioned.
And you feel like you have to take advantage of the other person to get a better deal, and even though the opportunity may even present itself, do you do that? And the answer is yes. Then you're not operating from a winner's mindset. You're operating from a taker or an egotistical or something like that.
Yeah, that's actually something I teach in my courses is that everybody in the deal has to win or there's no deal.
Yes.
If the janitor gets screwed when we make this deal, I don't participate in that deal. Because if one person gets screwed, then it can just snowball. It tells you a lot about the people you're working with and their integrity, and there's just absolutely no reason to stand for it. When everybody wins, then all of a sudden you'll have people coming back to want to do more deals with you and bring you deals
Correct.
compared to literally screwing over the janitor, and now the janitor is going to make sure that the next deal gets screwed over, or everybody knows that you screwed him over, or whatever. And as he should, right? Like people should communicate when they're being taken advantage of, so that others can watch out. So why would you ever do that? So awesome.
Very good.
Well, if people want to find you, how would they find you on the web or email? How would you like them to find you?
Well, I actually have two different websites. If you're looking for doing real estate and watching my blogs that are on real estate, you can go to www.kevinsellsvegas.com. Again, that's Kevin Sells, SELLS, Vegas.com. Now, if you're looking more for the personal growth, personal development, business coaching, where my books are stored and all of that, that's just my name at kevinadunlap.com. And my email will be kevin at whichever of those two that you want, that you use, either Kevin Sells Vegas or the kevinadunlap.com.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much for being here on the show tonight. And hopefully we'll see you again maybe in the future for some kind of follow-up interview.
Oh, I would love it. I would love that.
Awesome. Well, have a great day, Kevin.
My pleasure. Thank you, sir.